TFA fam, back again with another video. Today we're going to be discussing Saquon Barkley and why you can get all the way out of here with this 109 ADP. No, baby. What are we doing? Lock it in, strap it down. This one's about to get spicy. Let's roll. So, that's why I mentioned Saquon Barkley's current ADP is 109, and his TFA consensus ranking is RB6. I currently have him as RB2 in PPR and half-point PPR formats, and that ain't going to change. I'm going to tell you that right now. So let's go back, jump into our time machine back when Saquon Barkley was last played a season outside of the one and a quarter game he played last year. 2019, he played in 13 games. He averaged 18.8 fantasy points per game, 244 fantasy points overall, 35 red zone touches. He had 73 targets, 217 carries, 1,003 rushing yards, 52 receptions, 5 goal line carries, 8 total touchdowns, 9 carries of 15-plus yards, which was ninth among all running backs. He averaged 501 yards created and 1.86 yards created per touch, which was 7th, 68 evaded tackles, which was 16th. So despite the fact that he only played in 13 games, he was still the RB10, still had over 1,000 rushing yards, 52 receptions on 73 targets. Listen, I get it. When we talk about running backs and what we see happen is we should be embracing guys like this because we get an injury discount, right? Earlier in the process, back in probably May, he was going a little bit higher, but then all of a sudden we start getting a little bit of news back in May of where he was and, his progression through this injury, that, he wasn't really quite there yet, and and all those things. Talked about Joe Judge and really taking things slow. And that's where we're starting to see a decrease in his ADP. And it makes no sense because things have changed. But nobody talks about that. Nobody's sitting here talking about the fact that Saquon Barkley is practicing. He's out there. He's running. He's cutting. He's jumping. But the Giants are taking it slow, as they should. It's training camp. It's preseason. There's zero reason to go out here and just rush him right back out there into practice right now. Let him work up. Let him build his way up. Because right now, if the videos that you see that are circulating around on the old Twitter machine, I mean, he looks fine. He looks great. Now, I am not a doctor, and yes, of course, that's not live game action and all that stuff. But he does not look like a guy who just came off of an ACL injury. He looks explosive, and that's been the reports that people have said that have been at training camp, that have watched him, that he looks like Saquon Barkley. He does not look like a guy that's coming off an ACL injury, but that's not being talked about. All that's being talked about is regurgitated bullshit that was talked about months ago. It's time to move past that. While, yes, there is a possibility that they could hold him back a little bit and for the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season and kind of move him along slowly and not give him like his full 85% to 90% workload that he normally sees. That's certainly within the range of possibilities. But we're still talking about one of the most efficient, explosive running backs that we've seen in a very long time. Right? The guy in 2018 led all running backs, and it wasn't even close, and carries of 40-plus yards. That's what this guy does. He's an absolute monster. He's a machine. He's in terms of just athletically, he's the best running back we may have ever seen in terms of just athletically. You would have to go back to like Bo Jackson to talk about guys that are in his stratosphere when it comes to this stuff. So when it comes to all those things, I'm not worried about it. And no, I'm not really all that concerned with the offense. He's been in a shitty offense his entire career, and he's produced. He was in a shitty offense in 2018. He was in a shitty offense in 2019. I don't care about what his offense was. And we talk about this, and we look at a guy like Wayne Gallman last year who played on this team, who in the second half of the year was a pretty solid RB2 over the second half of the season, I might add. And yes, one of the other knocks is the offensive line that he's going to be playing against, which their offensive line in 2020 was pretty bad. 21st in adjusted line yards, 20th in power rank, 24th in second level, 20th in open field, 27th in adjusted sack rate via Football Outsiders, and PFF ranked them 32nd against the pass and 23rd against the run. While some things that should be noted is that they were starting 3 rookie offensive linemen along that offensive line. Andrew Thomas was the first-round pick who's thrusted into action because of the starter opting out. And then you also had Matt Pert and Shane Lemieux, who were all 3 rookies last year, drafted in the first, third, and fifth rounds of last year's draft. And asking 3 rookie offensive linemen to step right in and anchor this offensive line, I think, is a tall task, especially in a year where there was COVID going on, where they didn't get mini camp, they didn't get a rookie mini camp or any of those things. They came into training camp, did training camp, no preseason games whatsoever to get any sort of understanding of NFL action. And I will say over the second half of the season, like this offense was dead last in every metric earlier in the year, and and they got a little bit better. Now, am I saying that this offensive line is going to be great? No, but I don't think it's going to be as bad as people think that it might be. I think Andrew Thomas took a big step forward in the second half last year as well. So if this offensive line can come together, not to mention the fact that the weapons that the Giants added with Kenny Golladay and Kadarius Toney, so I think this offense could be a little bit better than people are giving him credit for. But I'm not worried about Saquon Barkley and the fact that he may be brought along a little bit slowly. It's not enough to drop him down to RB9, RB10, where some people are putting him. It's fucking ridiculous. It makes no sense. The guy has absolute league winning upside. He has absolute RB1 upside in him. He's done it before. He did it. Now I get it. He's coming off ACL injury. I know people point to there's not a lot of running backs that have come back the year after and really produced. Really, the list is Adrian Peterson and Jamal Charles are the two guys in the most recent memories that were able to do it. Now, people talk about Dalvin Cook and say, well, look what Dalvin Cook did the year after he came back, right? Well, Dalvin Cook, he wasn't nearly as good as he was the year before he tore his ACL. I would argue the opposite. I mean, he had almost 1,000 yards in 10 games because he suffered a hamstring injury that lingered on throughout most of the year. And so he did not get in a full year. But you know what? The biggest knock I hear about Saquon Barkley is that he's injury prone, right? Which is just fucking stupid. It's just not true. And he played in 13 games in 2019, and then he obviously only played 1.5 last year, right? But he was fully healthy in 2018, his rookie year. But we don't talk about that with Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook has never played a full 16 games, ever. Not once. There has not been a year he's played 16 games. Yeah, I believe he played 6 games his rookie year. He played in 10 games the year after that, 14 and 14 the years after that. The dude is always hurt. The guy gets hurt every single year. Now, the last couple of years have been minor injuries that have only kept him out of a couple of games. And I don't care. I don't care that he gets hurt. It shouldn't matter. What you are drafting this guy for is for what they provide you on a weekly basis, that floor, but also that massive ceiling that's going to be able to get you 30, 40-point upside, where a lot of these other running backs just don't have that in them. And just the overall ceiling and what we're talking about. That, listen, if he starts off slow, and let's say for the first 2 or 3 weeks of the year, they bring him along slowly, and let's say he only plays 60% of the snaps, but the guy is still heavily involved in the passing game, which we know a target is twice as valuable as a carry. So if he's not getting 20 plus carries a game, I don't care. If he's only getting, let's say, 15 carries a game, but he's still seeing 7 to 8 targets per game, which is still very much in the range of possibility here, then wheels up for Saquon Barkley. And for all the people that are not drafting him because they're worried about what somebody said 3 months ago or 2 months ago, you're lost. Because if you're drafting in the back half of the draft, Saquon Barkley falls to you, you just absolutely got an absolute gift. All right. He is working his way back. He is very close to returning to practice, and he'll be ready to go for week 1. We can get out of here with all the other bullshit. And if I have to hear one more person say that Derrick Henry should be drafted ahead of Saquon Barkley, my head's going to explode, because Derrick Henry has no business being drafted in the top 3. I know haters are going to hate, and they're going to, what? What do you mean Derrick Henry isn't worth that? What are you talking about? Look, do you see what he did last year? 2,000 yards and 17 touchdowns? I did. And he only finishes RB3 in PPR formats, well behind Alvin Kamara. And he also finished behind 14-game Dalvin Cook. So get out of here with a guy who just had a historic season and still couldn't outproduce these other guys. Okay? That's the problem with taking a running back who has no upside whatsoever in the passing game. A guy who's only going to see 20 receptions. Okay, that's what happens, because a target is so much more valuable than a carry. And there's a really good chance that Derrick Henry is not going to have another year like that. He's probably going to come somewhere in 1,500 total yards, 10 to 12 touchdowns, great year, but not for a PPR format, which is the absolute standard now. So draft Saquon Barkley at RB2. If you'd rather go Dalvin Cook there, fine. I'm not going to knock you for that. But there's zero reason he should be going outside of the top 5. So get in on this buying opportunity, whether it's best ball or if your league mates feel the same way and they're going to pass on Saquon Barkley because he's injury prone. Get out of here with all of that. It's bullshit. It's a narrative driven bullshit that a couple people have said, and people are running with it. But let's talk about the most current news where the dude looks like Saquon. So if you look like Saquon, I'm going to draft you like you're Saquon. Lock him in as RB2, nuts on the table, not worried about it. You'll thank me later. I really appreciate everybody checking out the video. I'll see you on the next one.